Hello everyone. It has been a while. Oh my gosh. I haven't done one of these tea time live streams since before summer. So let me just go to my channel so I can see your guys' comments. If you can't hear me, let me know. But then again, if you can't hear me, you couldn't hear me saying that. But yeah, if I'm talking and people are telling me that they can't hear me, then I will take a look at that. So here we go. I can double check my stream. Yeah, I can hear it myself in my stream. Okay, so for those of you who are new here, I'm Alex the Historian, and during days of cold weather or good weather, I will do these tea time live streams, and basically we just have kind of like a British afternoon tea in the style of the old ocean liners that used to cross the North Atlantic. In fact, this whole China set you see in front of me and even behind me once was used on the RMS Queen Mary before it retired in 1967. The Queen Mary first went into service in 1936, served during World War II as a troop ship, and then continued on through the 50s and 60s as a luxury transatlantic liner. And so they would have served afternoon teas and snacks and things. And I also have something that I haven't had on these tea time live streams in a long time. I made some finger sandwiches. So I used to make these cucumber sandwiches all the time for my tea time live streams, but every time I needed to order the groceries for it, it just never lined up with one of my tea time live streams. And I have to make it 2 hours ahead of time. It takes a lot of pre-planning before I serve these on an afternoon tea. But yeah, you can see I have everything in front of me. And let's actually start brewing the tea. Today we're having Earl Grey. It is literally, I haven't had Earl Grey since before summer. So I've been really craving it. Earl Grey is my favorite tea. So first, since this is real authentic bone china, it doesn't react well to extremely hot water being poured in it. So I start with some really hot tap water to begin the slow warming up process of the china. You'll notice this china is probably not like you expect to see. It's very Art Deco. That's because the ship was Art Deco. Still is. The ship's in Long Beach, California. I understand that there's probably a lot of people who are new here who've probably never seen me do anything like this. But anyway, so that was hot tap water in both the teacup and the teapot. I'm emptying it out about halfway, and then in comes some boiling water to top it off, just to start warming it up even more. The goal is to bring up the temperature slowly so the china doesn't shatter when I pour the full boiling water in there. How is everybody doing? It's been such a long time. Hello, Ozzy. Hello, Theodore. Hello, Gina. Hello, Lachlan. Nice to see everyone. Looks like we got 20 viewers so far. And yeah, so there's a few topics I wanted to discuss today. First and foremost, some of the interesting announcements that have been made at the Queen Mary, and in fact, a new podcast. I'm editing a podcast right now. It was supposed to come out yesterday, but the recording was about an hour and 20 minutes long, and I have to edit that down to make it as streamlined as possible while still retaining the heart of the podcast. But I'm editing that down, and I'll probably air it on Tuesday or Wednesday or something. I usually try for Fridays, but I missed Friday yesterday, so I still have to do that. And in that podcast, we talk about these projects that have been announced for the Queen Mary. So we'll talk about that. And then I guess kind of like a quick rundown of what I've been doing lately, some updates to the channel, some things that are coming, all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can ask me all your questions and comments along the way. I try to answer everybody. Just keep in mind that there may end up being a lot of people that tune in to this live stream, and the chat could be going crazy. I might not be able to keep up with it, but for now, it looks like it's manageable. Hello, Reliant. Hello, Shibert. Arnaud says, I hope they soon gonna restore the, what is that? The third class dining saloon. Oh, I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah, I'm sorry. There were a lot of things, some really big projects announced for the Queen Mary, but I really do not see them restoring the third class dining saloon. One of the biggest reasons is because, first of all, it's way out of the way for any people coming to the Queen Mary. If you wanted to get in that room, I mean, it's just not in a convenient spot. It doesn't offer very good views of the harbor. I mean, neither does the first class dining saloon. It doesn't offer good views. But the one thing about the first class dining saloon is it's got that huge atrium, that beautiful 3-story high center dome, as they call it, with the beautiful artwork that goes from the top to the bottom, 3 full decks high. And it's like just completely Art Deco looking. It's beautiful. So it may not be able to offer views of the harbor, but it's got that, and it's got lots of artwork all over it. The third class dining saloon didn't. I mean, it did have a couple pieces of artwork. I believe maybe in total there were 4 pieces of artwork in the whole thing. There's no dome. It's a very low ceiling compared to other places on the ship, in terms of like a public space. It's got a low ceiling. It's also in a horseshoe shape with a bunch of like trunks and things in the middle of the room. So like you have the forward funnel hatch creates a big wall at the very forward end of the room, and then behind that you've got the pantries and things, and then even parts of the area sectioned off for the first class swimming pool. So the room is in a horseshoe shape, and no matter where you stand in the room, you can't see the whole room, which kind of becomes a problem for people who want to book, let's say, special events, weddings, receptions, meetings even, because you can't stand necessarily in one spot, do a presentation or a music show, and yet have all your guests be able to see you. The room is just so oddly shaped. So I don't see it coming back because it wouldn't be a very good venue for renting out. I think it would get more complaints than it got compliments. It's not a very beautiful room necessarily. Sure, it had some marquetry paneling. It had some wood grain paneling and things, but that's about it. It's not really a beautiful room. It's not really a big room in terms of height. In some areas it can feel a bit claustrophobic. So I just don't see it being a good room to make any kind of money off of, or being an interesting enough room for people wanting to see, and for the Queen Mary to want to invest tons of money in bringing it back. The good news is that we do have a section of the third class dining saloon, which is still mostly the way it used to look, except for the furnishings. And that room actually was currently converted into what I think is a temporary merchandise place. So you can, I think for the season of the Dark Harbor and Halloween and all that, I think what they'll do is they'll end certain tours at this third class dining saloon where they've opened up a shop full of like stuff about the occult and whatnot. So it's like got Ouija boards, and it's got, you know, t-shirts and things that advertise Dark Harbor. It's all themed to kind of like the dark side of the Queen Mary. A bit hokey in my opinion, but it actually looks kind of cool. I mean, if I was telling Shiloh that if I was walking around, the streets of New Orleans and I saw a shop like that, it looks perfect. It looks nice. I'd walk in there and look around. So it's not like it doesn't look good. It's just that I think that a lot of us history buffs probably wouldn't appreciate the whole ghost, scary, haunted thing they're trying to sell for the Halloween season. But it is Halloween season, and I do believe the shop is only temporary. It's for the season. So I don't think it's really that big a deal in the end. I'm not going to make a big fuss over it or anything because I think it's only temporary. So, hello, yeah, RDMDK. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Just been very busy with a bunch of stuff for the channel, so things are going along. I'm not having as many people commenting as I used to. Where's all my usual crowd? I don't see them. Let's start brewing some tea here. So what I'll do is I will now empty out this teapot completely. Man, YouTube with these ads, it's like ridiculous. I don't have any control over these ads, by the way, because they used to give us control. We used to be able to say, okay, here's where we want an ad to be placed, here's where we want this and that and the other. But recently, YouTube's AI has just been like, we don't care how many ads you guys want, we're putting our ads anyway. So I get these ads that pop up in the chat, and it covers the whole chat, and I have no control over that. And even if I did, I'm sure it'd only be temporary. I'm sure they'd cut that off too and say, well, we want our ads on here. So, that is a bit frustrating. So I do feel for you guys, because I don't normally put that many ads in any of my stuff. So, yeah. Alright, so that's brewing. It's 1:13. It takes 4 minutes, so 1:17 is when that will be ready. Let's see. Hello, Eric. Hello, Ozzy. Yeah, it's funny. So like I was saying, I usually do these tea time live streams on a day of cool weather because, I have all these lights on me. I'm kind of shuttered in this room. I have to have the window and the door closed so that way there's no sound coming in and disturbing the chat and all that kind of stuff. And then I wear this jacket, because you have to wear a nice jacket if you're going to have afternoon tea. And it gets so hot in here. You might even hear that I have my fan on right now, because it gets so warm. And so last week, when I decided I was going to do a tea time live stream, for today, for Saturday, it said it was going to be a kind of a cold day. It said it was going to be 65 degrees or something. I said, perfect, I can do a tea time live stream. But then after I ordered the groceries for all this stuff, then the weather on the weather app changed, and it said it was going to be 75 degrees, which doesn't sound so bad. But again, when you're locked in a room and you've got the lights on and the jacket and all that, it gets really hot in here. And so I'm already sweating. It's already hot. But I already have everything set up, so I might as well go along with it, yeah, so as for the announcements on the Queen Mary, one of the big things is that they're bringing back the Long Gallery. The Long Gallery is a room on the promenade deck that used to exist and used to connect the main lounge with the first class smoking room. And that was divided up into several different rooms. And one of those rooms today is a Starbucks. But thankfully the room was not destroyed in order to divide it up. It was actually, they just built these kind of like what I call temporary walls, which kind of divide the sections of the room up so they can use it for different purposes. But those walls can be easily taken down and the room could be restored to its full size, and that's what they're going to do. So that's one of the things that they mentioned. So it's going to be really neat. By the way, if any of my Disney fans are watching, feel free to ask Disney-related questions. This is a chat for everything. It's just that normally a lot of my ocean liner fans are here in the chat, so I get used to talking about the Queen Mary and about ships in general. But feel free to ask any questions about what we talk about on the channel. So, all right. Let's see. Another one of the really big announcements that they made is that they're bringing back, they're restoring the drawing room and the observation bar on Promenade Deck to how it used to be. Hey Emma, how's it going? Oh, that's so cool to see Emma here. Yeah, so on Queen Mary, they're bringing back the observation bar and drawing room as they used to look in 1936. So they're actually going to be working on that. I think they're working on the drawing room right now, actually, because it has been shuttered for a while, and they're doing some restoration work in there. So can you imagine that, seeing a room as it used to look in 1936? And then the observation bar, too. You know, one of the biggest offenses is that they have this, time for tea. They have this carpet that was installed in the 80s or 90s, and it just doesn't look that good. So it'll be great to see them reinstalling the linoleum as it used to look from the 1930s and 1940s. But that's not even, like, the biggest news, in my opinion. One of the places that they're bringing back on the Queen Mary that they just announced is the synagogue. So Queen Mary was not the first ship to have a synagogue, but she was the first ocean liner to have a synagogue designed along with the ship at the same time. So other ships, after they were built and launched and put in service, they to combat, like, Nazism and Hitlerism, they converted rooms to, like, a temporary synagogue for their Jewish passengers. But the Queen Mary was designed with that in mind. So already from the blueprint, she had, a synagogue in mind. Her synagogue opened along with the ship in 1936. It was designed by the famed architect Cecil Jacob Epperl, and it was ceremoniously blessed by Britain's chief rabbi J.H. Hertz, and it was a direct, what's the word? Affront, I guess, to Nazism. It was kind of like a middle finger to Hitler for doing that. And so the Queen Mary's synagogue, it lasted all through the ship's career at sea, but when the ship came to Long Beach and was converted into a hotel, they were looking at a bunch of lounges, a bunch of public spaces, and going, how can we take all these numerous spaces and convert them for our needs as a hotel and convention center? And so one of the ways that they did that was they removed the synagogue, they dismantled it. I won't say they threw anything away. They dismantled it, and they used the room for the last 50 years as kind of a storage closet, a maintenance closet. And earlier this year, back in May, I saw them emptying it out, and I thought, that's so weird. Like, I heard rumors that the synagogue was coming back, but I didn't want to say anything to any of my viewers because I didn't want to generate unnecessary hype over that kind of thing, especially if it turned out not to be true. So I didn't say anything. But now it makes sense because the general manager, Steve Koloka, had announced that the synagogue is coming back, that they're partnering with all the artifacts that were in the synagogue, the pews, the Torah scrolls, the Torah ark, all kinds of fittings and furnishings that were in that room were, at 50 years ago, donated to several different synagogues and Jewish organizations. And all those organizations kept those things. I don't think a single one of them threw anything out over the years. Every single one of them kept those things. And so the Queen Mary Hotel is working with all of those folks who were donated those belongings from the Queen Mary to get them to send them all back to the ship for the restoration of the synagogue, which is just amazing. I've wanted this ever since I first learned of the synagogue 5 years or so ago, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be so cool, because you get to see a space on the ship that meant so much to so many people. I mean, we're talking about, when the ship was inching closer to World War II back in 1939, they were overbooked with Jewish passengers. The ship had a capacity of about 2,300 passengers, but due to the influx of Jews that were and not just Jews, but other people who were escaping the growing Nazi party in Europe, they were all booking voyages across the Atlantic to the U.S., to Canada, to even parts of South America, that kind of thing, Mexico or whatnot. They were going across the Atlantic, and there was such a dire need to move tons of people who, if they stayed behind, would have faced death. So Cunard allowed the ship to become overflowing with passengers closer and closer to when World War II happened. And so at one point, the Queen Mary crossed the ocean with over 5,000 passengers aboard. Most of them were refugees, people who were fleeing Europe, and a great number of them were Jewish. So the synagogue means so much to world history. Again, being that it's the first synagogue to be designed in mind with the ocean liner, and the fact that it helped to bring comfort and offer prayer for those who were left behind in Europe. So yeah, it is an amazing room. I'm so excited for it to come back. Now here's all the people chatting. Let's see. Barry says, "Hey Alex, greetings from Newcastle, UK. Any more updates on removing the ugly submarine from the Queen Mary berth yet?" So yes. So for the longest time, I would say the last couple of years, probably since 2021, the city of Long Beach has been working to diplomatically and democratically try to get the previous owner of the submarine to remove it, because they had engineers come in 2 different times to survey the submarine and give estimates on, first of all, how it can be removed, and second of all, how much that'll cost. And most of the ideas for how to get rid of it and how to, and all that, it would have costed around $5 million or a little bit more just to remove the submarine. And that's to scrap it, like to trash it. That wasn't even to save it. $5 million. So the city was like, well, we can't just spend all this taxpayer money, because, of course, the taxpayer is going to get very angry that they have to pay to get rid of this submarine. So they tried to go the typical route that they should, which is to try to contact the previous owners, get them to pay for the removal. And it's been in litigation for several years, because the previous owners couldn't be contacted, and then the owners before those owners said, it's not our responsibility, we sold it. So it's been tied up like that. And so finally, early this year, the city of Long Beach finally announced that under their what's it called, eminent domain clause, they're going to take over the submarine and then start planning for its removal. So they do believe that the submarine may be removed. I think by now, it's been several months since they posted that, I think by now it'll probably be about 12 more months before we start to see them move in with crews and start dismantling it and removing it. It could be sooner, but city governments and stuff, it takes a bit of a while for them to be able to do things. Sometimes stuff just takes forever when it comes to government. So they are going to remove it. They are going to scrap it. They have said that we're no longer going to try to get previous owners to get rid of it because we can't get a hold of them. So they said, we're taking it over, we're removing it. They're checking out the ways to do that. Now, we know it will be removed, and here's why. The 2028 Olympics are coming to the city of Long Beach. They're coming to Los Angeles, but Long Beach is the city on the coast that LA has entrusted to do all the aquatic sports for the 2028 Olympics. So a big budget has been awarded to the city of Long Beach to get the city ready for the Olympics. One of those big budgets is to get rid of the submarine. Another part of that budget is to donate money towards the Queen Mary for more restorations. So that's why, like I was just talking about the announcements that were made about the return of the Long Gallery, the synagogue, the drawing room, the observation bar as it used to look, and several other things that have been going on around the ship. That budget is for the Olympics. They want the ship, which is the city's icon, by the way, they want the ship to be in its best condition it can be in time for the Olympics. They don't want there to be any blemishes or anything around the Queen Mary because it just won't make them look good. And plus, there's going to be lots of celebrities and heads of state from all over the world who will come to the Olympics, and they may stay on the Queen Mary. They may visit the Queen Mary. There's some estimations that it's possible that members of the royal family could show up to visit the Queen Mary as part of their goodwill tour during the Olympics. And the Queen Mary must be in tip-top shape by then. She can't look like, a drabby, hotel. So work is going to be going on, and it's going to ramp up as we get closer to those Olympics. There's going to be a change on the Queen Mary like we haven't seen in the last 50 years. Because, for one thing, the managing director, Steve Coloca, who is in charge of the Queen Mary essentially, to kind of summarize his job position, he is very much supportive of bringing the ship back to how it used to look in the 1940s and in the 1930s. He loves the ship, he loves the history, and he wants to see that brought back, and so does the rest of his management team. I've spoken to several members of his management team, and none of them have the mindset that previous management in the years and decades past used to have. In the years and decades past, the mindset was, let's modernize, let's update this ship to be a modern hotel. And so they did really silly things. Like, they converted the observation bar, which used to be an upscale cocktail lounge for the first class, they converted that into a sports bar. So for the longest time, the observation bar was a sports bar. When Steve Coloca and his team came in back in 2021, one of the first things they did on the Queen Mary was take down those TVs in the observation bar and reconvert the observation bar back into a fancy cocktail lounge. So to this day, you can go in the observation bar, and they often have live jazz music and live swing dance music. And if they don't have anything live, then it's still a very upscale atmosphere. And again, it's going to improve once more with the upcoming refurbishment to return the observation bar to mostly how it looked in the 30s and 40s, which would just be fantastic. So there's a lot of great stuff happening for the Queen Mary. I haven't even prepared my tea yet, so let me put some sugar in here. I have these little demi-tasse spoons. I like 1.5 of sugar. My mouth is getting so dry because I'm talking so much, but it's because I'm so excited. I mean, it's crazy because I remember what was it, just 4 years ago or so, there was all these talks about the Queen Mary possibly being scrapped, being, abandoned, that kind of thing. And I poured through all this research. I poured over like mountains of inspectors' reports from I think the year 1990 all the way till now. I poured over all these inspection reports, and was really trying to get a good idea of what the real condition of the ship was. Not what the newspapers were reporting, which, I hate to say this, there's a lot of people that say the newspapers print fake news, right? And that can be a dangerous thing to say because it creates an automatic distrust for journalism. And the thing is, we need journalism. But I can say, with all honesty, without lying to any of you guys, what the newspapers were printing about the Queen Mary in the year 2020, 2021, 2022, and even as far late as 2023, was they were posting all this information about how the ship was going to sink and capsize, and how it's literally falling apart, and it's, you know, and it's a danger to be on, and all this stuff. And they're citing the inspection reports as their sources, but I'm sitting there with the inspection reports in my hand, reading it and going, that's not exactly what the inspector was saying. You know, the inspector was saying the ship is in great condition. She's one of the best built ships, one of the best built structures in modern human history, built stronger than any ship today, which is why she's lasted so long. He even goes on to say that the Queen Mary, if she were to be neglected for another 5 years without any intervention, it could lead to the risk of potential sinking and capsizing. But he didn't say it will. He said it could. And that's if the ship was neglected for another 5 years, which we know in hindsight it was not. Once the city of Long Beach took over in the year 2021, they immediately infused the ship with money and started doing all those major restoration projects. The ship's hull was inspected. A lot of people think the ship is resting on concrete, or her ballast tanks are filled with concrete to keep her sitting upright. That's not the case. The ship really does float in the water, and she will rise and fall with the tide. I have photographic evidence of it. I can't put it on the live stream, but I can send it to you in email if you really don't believe me. But the ship does float, and she rises and falls with the tide. While they did remove her boilers and some of her machinery, they compensated for that loss of weight by filling a good number of the ballast tanks with drilling mud. So not just any mud, it's called drilling mud, and that's because it's mud that is compacted from deep under the sea floor. It's so compacted that it has a very minimal amount of oxygen saturation, which means that if they pump that mud into the tanks of the Queen Mary, there won't be that much oxygenation happening. Therefore, there's very little corrosion that will happen with the mud sitting in her tanks. And we know that that ended up being like true and correct, because just, what was it, maybe 2 years ago, it's on my website, RMSQM Wiki. The link is in the description below. You can check out, I have a whole article about, I wrote all the conditions of the hull right now. But they had, just 2 years ago, decided to start doing inspections of each of those tanks to make sure that there is no corrosion that maybe people can't see because they're filled with mud. So they opened up the tanks, they one by one removed the mud and then inspected them. And what's crazy, here's what's crazy. When the builders in Clydebank, Scotland in the 1930s were building the Queen Mary, they coated all the metal inside the double bottom tanks with a type of like pitch or tar, and that was to protect it because they knew that these would be ballast tanks, so they'd be filled with water. Water against steel is not a good thing, even if it's fresh water. Although Queen Mary did use salt water for her ballast, but anyway, that's beside the point. But they coated the tanks with like a pitch or tar of some kind to protect the steel, right? Now, when the inspectors recently, 2 years ago or so, when they opened up the tanks, they were expecting to see that the pitch and tar was gone. They were expecting to see that there would be some corrosion. But when they opened up those tanks and pumped out all the mud and then climbed in there and inspected, all the pitch and tar was still on the metal. Still, after all these years, it's been, what, 1930 all the way till I think it was when they inspected it, 2024. 1930 to 2024, and the pitch and tar that they had put on the steel in the ballast tanks was still on the metal, protecting it. So there was little to no corrosion to speak of. They actually wrote that in their report. Little to no corrosion to speak of in the double bottom tanks. The Queen Mary is, for a lack of a better term, healthy as a horse. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that is a testament to how well the ship was built. I mean, she's never had a saltwater leak. She's never leaked ocean water. People have posted pictures of pools of water in the boiler rooms and stuff like that over the years. But that's from hotel water, like plumbing that leaked and dripped all the way down into the boiler rooms. That's not seawater. So the Queen Mary has never sprung a leak. She's never been like that. But nevertheless, they refilled the ballast tanks with drilling mud. They sealed everything off. Then they installed brand new, 11 brand new automatic bilge pumps and water intrusion alarms designed to activate if they detect water intrusion. And as well as that, they have a brand new, entirely brand new emergency generator system that will supply enough power to the ship to operate all of those bilge pumps and intrusion alarms, as well as to keep on the emergency lights and emergency sirens on the ship if there is an emergency. So it's powerful enough to supply the ship with that much power. On top of that, they had computer models that had checked the Queen Mary. So if the Queen Mary had any water intrusion, they wanted the computer models to detect what would happen if a ton of water came in, and where would it go, and how can they slow it down to allow people to escape the ship in a decent amount of time. And so the computer models basically told them, the ship is mostly good. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously the computer doesn't talk like this, but the ship is mostly good. You just have two areas where you need to build up the watertight, what do we call it, the watertight bulkheads. There's two areas in the ship. We need to build up the watertight bulkheads just a few feet higher, and then that's good enough to make sure every last person gets off the ship in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know what that time is, but that was dictated by the fire marshal, who re-inspected the ship back in 2022 and then rewrote a new evacuation plan. So the fire marshal dictates how long it should take to get everyone off the ship, and then based on that, the computer model told the engineers, here's how many bilge pumps you need, and here's how tall the watertight bulkheads need to be in order for people to safely get off the ship within this amount of time. And they went and did it, and it's done. The project is completed. Fire suppression system. People talk about, oh, the ship could catch fire. No. I mean, she's one of the most fire-protected ships in the world right now, aside from probably the newest cruise ships. But she has all working fire doors to seal off sections of the ship to isolate the fire. Even though she's covered in tons of wood paneling, that wood paneling is a special paneling that was developed for the Queen Mary in the 1930s. It's called turn-all plywood, and it's created with layers of asbestos, which I know sounds crazy. But asbestos was designed to slow down the burn if the wood were to catch fire, sometimes even stop and choke out the fire. So there is a controlled amount of burn that they can have, as well as the fact that 2019 or 2018, they replaced the entire fire suppression system on the ship. So they had a fire suppression system that they installed in the 1970s that was entirely taken out in 2018 and replaced with an all-new fire suppression system which can handle modern loads of water that need to rush in. They dictate how much water per minute needs to flood the room and that kind of stuff. So it can handle all of that now. And so the fire suppression system on the Queen Mary is up to date. All the little alarms and things down the corridors are all brand new to 2018. So everything on the ship is up to date. So she's as safe as can be, reasonably. She's as reasonably safe as can be, is what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of great stuff about the Queen Mary, and so I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, because it's just amazing how far things have come in just a couple of years, when everything looked so bleak that no one was really certain, what was going to happen to the ship. Cheers. Oh, that's so good. I waited so long, so it kind of cooled down, but that's so good. Hello, QMI. QMI Restore the Queen, folks, is a wonderful 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the restoration of the Queen Mary. So they have helped the Queen Mary. I think one of their most recent projects was they donated a great sum of money, I think the majority of the money, for the restoration of the Unicorns in Battle artwork in the first class main lounge of the Queen Mary, which that artwork looks better than it's looked in at least 30, if not 40 years, thanks to, in part to their efforts. So I'm happy to see QMI here in the chat. Hello. Let's see. Hello, Justin. Five Caps Films, thank you so much for the donation. Hi, Alex. Good to see you back. It's been a while. It really has. I've been waiting for cooler weather to do this. Arnaud says, I like the steering gear room. I would like to see the windlass gear room. The machineries are still there, I guess. They are, yes. The windlass machinery room, all the stuff is still in there. And they have talked in the past about bringing it back as part of like a walkthrough, like where maybe tours could go through there. So they can. It just hasn't happened yet, but I hope it does. I really hope it does. Because it'd be a great place to show people, like, this is the machinery that helped moor and dock the ship. So, yeah, that'd be a great place to showcase that. CN Matthias says, personally, I think they should build more modern rooms in the tea room. More modern rooms in the tea room. Oh. There's a tea room, folks that probably don't know. There's a tea room up on sun deck of the Queen Mary, all the way forward. And it used to be cabins for third-party crew members. So, like, people who operated the Marconi system, people who operated the telephone system, people who operated the banks on the ship, all that kind of stuff. Those were not Cunard people. Those were third-party employees. And they lived in the cabins that are now the big tea room up on sun deck. And so I guess Matthias is saying that they should build more modern rooms in that tea room. They could. I think the tea room actually is a great place to have a hotel lounge, like a place for hotel guests, not like just day visitors, but hotel guests to be able to lounge and relax in. But the other thing is just aft of that tea room is a bunch of empty space that they have for various possible exhibits that they might want to do over the years, but they almost never get to use those areas because it's so far out of the way. So, and those areas just after the tea room, those used to be first class cabins. So I was talking to Shiloh, we were talking about how, well, they could build more modern rooms, in Art Deco style, but more modern, up there on sun deck where there's actual views of the harbor, and there's more light, there's more natural light up there. So they could build more modern rooms up there, so I don't think they will, but it's just an idea. But, yeah, So RDMDK says maybe they'll turn the synagogue into a Cinnabon for added profit. So I know you're just joking, but I think so. I was like talking to Shiloh about this just the other day when we were recording the podcast about like where do you draw the line between a place that needs to make a profit and yet a place that needs to stay historic. And I think there's a big misunderstanding amongst people who have this strong feeling like the Queen Mary should not be making a profit, which I think is kind of bizarre because you go to any historic hotel, right? Like the Stanley Hotel or the Hotel del Coronado or whatnot. Any historic hotel, that even where I live, I'm up in Oregon, we have the Timberline Lodge, right? Historic hotels. But the thing is that they can't make money if they don't make money. You know what I'm saying? Like they require a profit in order to operate, in order to stay open, to keep their doors open. They need to make a profit. So there's always been a thing where I felt that the Queen Mary needs to find the right balance between places on the ship that earn profit versus places that offer exhibits and teach people about the past and that sort of thing. The library on Promenade Deck, for instance, a lot of people say, well, they should return it to a library. But who goes to a hotel to look for a library? I mean, it's not going to happen. Libraries, public libraries as they are today, are struggling because there's not enough people visiting them as there used to be. So why would a private library be any different? So I've always been supportive that the library on Promenade Deck be some kind of merchandise location. The drawing room on Promenade Deck, I don't mind if it's a merchandise location, but it seems like they're trying to restore it at least to how it used to look. So that's already a plus. The library looks pretty much as it did. It's just got, merchandise shelves instead of bookshelves. So, there's a good balance, I think, that's being struck here with the current management on the ship. They know how to make a space turn a profit while not making the room look unlike it used to. And so, we're talking about the Long Gallery, and the Long Gallery comes back. They'll probably bring back what used to be the midships bar in the Long Gallery. The Long Gallery had a bar they called the midships bar. I don't think it'll sell alcohol when it comes back, but I think that bar may be the new Starbucks, because they have a Starbucks on the ship. And that Starbucks is really convenient. When I stayed on the Queen Mary, I was visiting every single day because, I live all the way up in Oregon, so I don't get to see the Queen Mary that often. But at one point, my last visit, I was going every single day to the Queen Mary. And when you're on the ship, you need a quick coffee. You can't, sometimes you just can't go and get a table at the Promenade Cafe. You just need a coffee and maybe a quick breakfast burrito or something. And the Starbucks on the ship was really convenient for that. And I can't even tell you how many people were wandering the ship that morning and going, oh, where'd you get your coffee? And I'd be like, oh, it's just right down there. It says big sign says coffee. And so I think it is necessary. I think a coffee shop like a Starbucks is necessary on the Queen Mary. But if you can incorporate it so it fits into the history and doesn't detract from the history, I think it'll work. And so when they eventually bring back the Long Gallery, they may decide that they'll bring back the midships bar, but convert the bar into a Starbucks bar. And that's how they'll make their profit for that room. And I think that is really important. I mean, if we want the ship to be restored and to stick around, it needs to earn a profit. Because there's no way that with an annual budget of $5 to $10 million, that the city is going to supply that every single year just for visitors. And I don't think that as many visitors would show up to the ship if they couldn't eat at restaurants, drink coffee, or book events. If they couldn't do any of those things, I don't think there would be nearly as many people visiting the ship, which is not a good thing. So, I mean, that's kind of my stance on that kind of opinion. Again, I know you were just joking about the Cinnabon thing. Maybe you were half joking. I don't know, but I felt like that's an important topic to bring up, so that way we can discuss it, because I do feel it is important that the Queen Mary does earn a profit, or else how is she going to stick around? So if Cinnabon has to move in, I hope it's not in the synagogue. But if Cinnabon has to move in, I hope it's in a place on the ship that doesn't detract from the history, but adds to it. So that's kind of my whole opinion on that one. Arnaud says, will they bring the forward promenade back to the promenade deck? So Arnaud's talking about the observation bar. So at the observation bar currently, I mean, there used to be, back when the ship sailed, there used to be, the promenade would wrap around the observation bar. So that way people could go in a big loop around the interior of the ship on the promenade deck. And when the Queen Mary was converted to a hotel, and they decided to expand the observation bar by removing the forward promenade and building into it to add maybe 15 more tables to the bar. Now, Arnaud's asking, if they're going to return the observation bar to how it used to look in the 30s and 40s, does that mean that the forward promenade is coming back? No, it doesn't. I don't see them doing it for two reasons. One, because they need those extra 15 tables. I mean, it helps to turn a profit, and it offers better views, because the promenade used to wrap around the observation bar, so the views were sort of obstructed by an indoor hallway, and it didn't offer the best views. Currently, the way it is, there is no indoor hallway anymore. They've expanded into it. So now when you sit along the windows, you're sitting along the window that actually faces the outdoors. And it offers great views of downtown. Maybe not the industrial area to the port side, but it offers great views of downtown. So no, I don't think they're going to bring back the wraparound promenade, but that's not to say that they don't have one, because just outside the observation bar is the outdoor wraparound promenade, and you can walk around that. So it's not like you can't get to the other side. You very much can. It's just that it's not quite the same as it was when the ship was sailing the North Atlantic. So, let's see. Emma, yes, I do have shortbread biscuits here. They are Walker's brand, Scottish shortbread. I haven't eaten any of this yet. That's because I'm talking so much, but it's because I love talking about this stuff. Five Caps Film says, here in Los Angeles, it's been hot and humid, and it just feels quite gross. Yeah, I know the feeling. Because up until recently, we've had the heat and humidity too. It's been really weird. It's felt oddly tropical, which is very unusual for the Pacific Northwest, because it's usually either a little bit dry or it's very, very wet and cold due to our climate here. But it's been oddly warm and humid, so it's been very strange. Justin says, is the ship going to be filming a filming location anytime soon again? I really don't know, because often the only people that know about that kind of thing is the ship management themselves. Because often, if a movie is filming on the ship, they don't usually just announce it out in the open, because they don't want people coming in and disturbing their filming. So they usually just won't announce it. So I actually don't know. But it could happen anytime. You just never know. Sometimes you go to the Queen Mary expecting it to be kind of a slow day, and all of a sudden you see all these trucks out front, and they're filming something on the ship. The ship is so popular to film on because of all the Art Deco spaces. And I think with the return of several of those Art Deco spaces, there might be even more filming going on. So we'll see. So Arnaud says, what happened to the sun deck inside areas, like the cabins, the squash court, the gymnasium? If they restore the long gallery, they should restore the veranda grill and the aft staircase. So they don't just have a ton of money to spend. They don't just have unlimited sums. They have very limited sums of money that they're told, okay, use this money wisely, restore what you can and what you need to restore, right? So they look at things like the veranda grill, And while the veranda grill is missing very minute details that could bring it back to how it looked in the 1930s, ultimately, if you really look at the veranda grill today, it visually looks very much like it did in the 1930s. So doing a major like for instance, one of the things that I think kind of bothers some people is that the railings inside the veranda grill used to be like aluminum or stainless steel or something very shiny, and it was metal. But the railings today are made of wood that are painted to look like metal. And that's because way back in the 90s, when they were restoring the veranda grill to how it used to look, they had a very small budget. They couldn't afford to pay someone to hand shape all the metal to restore the railings. And even to this day, that would be in a very, very expensive job. So if they could fake it the way that they do on movie sets, for instance, then that's good for them. So will they restore the veranda grill for things like replacing the fake railings with actual metal ones? I don't think so. It does the job it needs to do. I mean, and there are other things on the ship that I think take precedence, because right now the veranda grill is only used for special events, and they do plan to use it again as a nightclub eventually, because that's what the veranda grill used to be out on the Atlantic. Was late at night it would turn into the Starlight Lounge. So it was a nightclub, essentially, a fancy nightclub, but a nightclub. And so they do want to return it to being a fancy nightclub on weekends, but ultimately the room won't be used that often. And so I think for now, I'm not saying forever, but for now, it's not on their radar to restore the veranda grill because it already looks the way it did. It's just not so authentic. You know what I mean? So there are things like the observation bar which really do need that money, because if you've been in the observation bar and looked at those carpets from the 1980s, oh my gosh, they are so dirty and ugly. And I mean, it's no offense to the hotel. I think anybody would admit that those carpets need to be replaced. And they want to, and they're going to, and from what I hear, they're going to replace it with linoleum that is similar to the linoleum that used to be on the Queen Mary. And let me just add, some people shudder when they hear the word linoleum, because they picture like the cheap linoleum that existed at their grandparents' kitchen, right? But you have to remember that in the 1930s, 1940s, and up until the 1950s, linoleum was considered a luxury material. You could only afford it if you were pretty well off. So linoleum was a luxury material, and the Queen Mary was covered in tons of linoleum. There was a type of linoleum in the 1930s called corkoid, which it's essentially linoleum, but instead of using sawdust as one of its main ingredients, it used cork, because it helped create a sponginess that was very comfortable to walk on. Not super spongy, but very slightly spongy, and it also helped to control noise. People walking in their high heels on it, it helped to absorb some of that sound. And so the ship was covered in linoleum and corkoid of all kinds. There was even a type of linoleum that was made of rubber, and it was called ruboleum. And in fact, in 1936, the observation bar, its floors were made of ruboleum. But I think sometime in the 1950s or 60s, it was possibly replaced with linoleum in the exact same pattern. I could be wrong about that, but nevertheless, in 1936, it was ruboleum. So when they do this refurbishment of the observation bar, they're going to replace all those carpets with linoleum, all cut in the same pattern it used to be when the ship was at sea, even down to the red rooster, which the managing director of the Queen Mary, Steve Coloca, had said. He said that its most iconic part of the floor was this big red rooster. And so they're going to replicate that. I believe it may still be under the carpet, actually, so they could just possibly clean it up and make it look nice again, the rooster itself. But the rest of the linoleum was pretty badly damaged over the years, so they will have to put new linoleum down. But nevertheless, I don't want people to cringe when they hear the word linoleum, because, again, it reminds us of, like, the cheap linoleum that our grandmothers had in their kitchen. But really, in the 1930s, it was a luxury material, and it was used in luxurious ways with these beautiful hand-cut patterns that they used to put on the floors. And just so you know, linoleum is better for the environment than vinyl floors. Just so you know. But yeah, so... Firecap says, isn't cork the material that bottles have on top? Yes, cork is, and there's also cork boards. You know, you put them on your walls and you can tack papers to them and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, cork wine bottles, that's made of cork, and so some of the linoleums, such as corkoid, that the Queen Mary used to have, were made with little tiny finely ground pieces of cork in the mixture. And so modern linoleum is made with sawdust, but it can be made of many materials: cork, sawdust, rubber. So yeah, but it's much better for the environment than the vinyl floors that people put in their homes today. The stuff that looks like real wood but isn't, that's all vinyl, and it's plastic. It's very bad for the environment. Linoleum isn't plastic. It's all natural materials. In fact, one of its main ingredients that keeps it binded together into a solid object is linseed oil. That's why it's called linoleum, because it's made with linseed oil that has been dried, and it becomes very tacky and thick, and they can put ingredients into it, natural ingredients, again, like sawdust, rubber, and cork, and and when they lay it onto canvas, it can create a nice hard material. In fact, I have some linoleum over here. Can I get to that? I'm gonna try. I have to climb over some things, but I'll be right back. I'm gonna try to get you a piece of linoleum. Okay. Oh boy. So I'm behind the camera right now, but I can show you a piece of linoleum that I have. Oops. Oh, shoot. I'm so clumsy sometimes, I just drop things, but I'm trying not to. I just need to move fast because I'm not in front of the camera. Okay, great. Here we go. I'll clean all that up later. So... Alright, here we go. This is linoleum. It is a very thin piece, but the back side is canvas, or in this case actually, because this is really cheap, this isn't canvas, this is... What's it called? Burlap. It's burlap, which some linoleum has burlap on the back. But sometimes it's canvas, sometimes burlap. It really doesn't matter. And then what they do is they pour the liquid ingredients on the top. And it's so finely ground. And this one I can tell is made with sawdust, because if I look at it in a raking light, you can see just little tiny hairs of sawdust coming out. Not splinters, so you can't hurt yourself with it. It's just little tiny hairs of sawdust that peek out of the top. But mostly it's very flat. And so they roll it out onto the burlap, and it sticks to it, and then when it dries, it becomes a permanent material that you can walk on for like up to 50 years before it gets so worn out that you have to replace it. But the best part is, if you scrape it all up and throw it, In the dump, the local dump, it will break down faster than the trash in that dump. And again, all of it is natural materials: sawdust, linseed oil, a couple other binding ingredients that are natural, and burlap or canvas. So it breaks down, it's natural for the environment, and it lasts for like 5 decades. So it's really great. It's like it's one of the reasons why on my website about the Queen Mary, I have a page called Miracle Materials. And this is one of those miracle materials. It's like one of those things that just, it's so tough and lasts forever that, you know, and yeah. So I think I've talked a bit too much about linoleum right now, but I just get so excited when I talk about linoleum. So, okay. Let's get to some questions here. So Five Caps Films says, since we're on the topic of Art Deco, Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, it has tons of Art Deco buildings, both big and small. That is very true, it does. Wilshire Boulevard is pretty fun to drive. I wouldn't want to walk along it for too far, but it's fun to drive because you see all the Art Deco buildings. Diamond says, I met Shiloh on the Queen Mary last month and it was amazing. I'm glad, yeah. Shiloh tells me now that when he goes to the Queen Mary, he gets recognized. So it's kind of felt good for him because, you know, for the longest time, like, if I go out in public, I get recognized, which is weird because I'm not really that popular. But I guess enough people have seen my videos, even if they're not subscribed, that I do get recognized when I go out for long periods of time. Eventually, someone will come up to me and want to shake my hand and say, I know you, you know, which is really cool. So if you ever see me out in public and you know it's me, feel free to come and say hi, because I'm always friendly. I'm always willing to talk and say hello and, you know, and kind of get to know you. So I am a friendly person, believe it or not. So Ozzy says, we're cooling off here in Arizona. Right now it's 97. Oh, goodness gracious. That's too hot. Let's see. Arnaud says, I say in my message they should record the veranda grill and the lawn gallery, but by the aft staircase. Oh, but you mean to restore veranda grill and the lawn gallery. Yeah. Well, I definitely do think that the aft first-class staircase, which goes, like you said, by the lawn gallery all the way up to veranda, that should be restored, because they have it blocked off on the promenade and sun deck levels, so it's only for crew at that level. But they should restore it. It would be a great way to get people to go all the way to Veranda Grill without having to exit the ship. I mean, if it's raining or something and you're trying to host a big, beautiful party in the Veranda Grill, and it's raining and you have to go outside just to get up to the Veranda Grill, that's a problem. So I do hope that they do restore that staircase and the elevator that goes up to that level. I hope that they restore that, so that way people who visit the Queen Mary and it's bad weather or something and they need to go up to Veranda Grill, it'll be easier for them to do so. So I hope that they do. I have a feeling they might. I have a feeling. Joe B says, hi Alex, are you still planning your UK trip or others? I know you were disappointed in the viewership of your New Orleans video, but I really enjoyed them. Thank you so much, Joe. Yes, so I am still planning the UK trip, and actually I've been really lucky lately because, so for the longest time, the last couple of years, I've had a lot of difficulty saving up for that trip because I announced this trip a couple of years back and I bit off way more than I could chew. I have to admit that now, because back then I thought, oh, this is no problem, I'll save up for it and I'll save a ton of money and I can go to the UK and film all these places, and I bit off more than I could chew. I should have started off smaller and then said, let's go to some cities in the US first and then go to the UK. And then built up my viewership that way. Unfortunately, yeah, I couldn't save up for it as fast as I wanted to, and for the longest time, my saving up abilities were stalled because I was making just as much money as I was having to spend it on bills. And so it would just, my money just decreased. And so for the longest time I couldn't save up money for it. And I had to kind of go quiet because I was like, I can't do this. Like, you know, I don't know when the channel's going to do better. And YouTube was doing this thing at the time where it was just kind of like not promoting my videos at all. So I would make really interesting videos, and even people on my channel didn't even know I was posting, which is just how crazy it gets sometimes. You're very much at the mercy of YouTube when you post videos here. So, and if my viewers don't know I post videos, they don't watch, and therefore I don't earn any ad revenue, and I can't save up for the UK trip. But thankfully, over the course of this summer, I've been able to post some really popular videos, and it's helped me to save up. And so I've been able to get back, claw my way back to paying my bills at the usual rate that I am supposed to. I've been paying off bills as well. And so now I'm starting to save up again for that UK trip. I've been talking to my friend Chris, who from the very beginning I said Chris was going to go with me on this UK trip. And I told him, I said, look, things are looking up right now. I'm hoping I can sustain it through the rest of the year, because then I can save up the money I need. And then once I have, I'd say like 90% of the money I need, then I'm going to actually start booking the trip. Because I don't want to prematurely book it. I don't want to have half the money and then start booking the trip and then find out, oh no, I broke my leg and, you know, I need to pay for the hospital bills and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want that to happen to me. So I want to have 90% of the money saved up before I actually start booking things, because if I start booking stuff and I run out of money, oh my gosh, that's going to be bad. So, but it is happening again. So thankfully, all of that stuff it's been getting better. So I'm hoping that by early next year, I will have that 90% of the money saved up, and then I can start booking the trip. So yeah, I'm really hoping. And yes, the trip will include me taking a voyage on the Queen Mary 2 across the Atlantic all the way to the UK. And we're going to stay in a really cheap room on the ship. I know none of them are cheap, but we're going to stay in the cheapest room on the ship. We're going to share a room. And even when we go to the UK, we're going to share hotel rooms and stuff like that. We're going to go as cheap as we possibly can. I mean, we're not going to go to any fancy restaurants unless it's on the Queen Mary 2, because they have them. But we're going to go to all, you know, affordable places. I have a friend now who lives in the UK. He was on one of my previous podcasts. His name is Brad. He just bought a house. I don't want to say what city because I don't want people to look him up. But he just bought a house, and so he said, you know, if you come to the UK, you guys can stay at my house for a little while. So, you know, I told Chris, I'm like, this is amazing, because that'll save us some money, making the trip even more possible. But also, we're gonna spend 3 days at Disneyland Paris, because my friend Chris, he doesn't do ocean liner stuff. Like, he films Disney places. That's what he does for his YouTube channel. He also films other theme parks, but mainly Disney. And so if we go to Paris, he's going to go there to do a lot of filming of Disneyland Paris. And I will too, because I've been building up my Disney audiences as well. And they're probably going to want to see content about Disneyland Paris. So I'm definitely going to be filming that as well. So, but when I go to the UK, I will be filming historic places, historic ships, bunch of historic stuff to make history videos about it. And in case you're all wondering about the historic videos, because you probably noticed there's been a lot of Disney videos lately. That's because, frankly, that's where all the views are coming from. If I post a Queen Mary video, for some reason people just don't watch it anymore. I think they're getting kind of tired of it. So I've been trying to take a break from it just to help people kind of like take a breather, take a refresher from the Queen Mary content, and then I'll come back full force with Queen Mary content and some other history content, because I'm working on various videos about various different cities and their origins, and because I love cities, I love the origins of cities, and so I'm working on videos like that. So I've got a lot on my plate. I'm also doing a lot of stuff one of my friends, his name is Preston. He has a Disneyland Railroad simulator that he released back in 2017, and he wants to update it. And he can't do it by himself because it's now today with modern software and stuff like that, it's very complex. So I've been learning how to do 3D modeling on computers in order to help him to upgrade his game. So we're building a refreshed Disneyland Railroad simulator, and it's the only game available in the world that replicates authentically the operations of a steam boiler. So that's nuts. I mean, the amount of physics and math that has to be worked out, all the calculations of thermodynamics to be able to make that work authentically. We're doing all that stuff. I'm building the railroad cars. I'm building the actual park, Disneyland. We're doing a couple different decades. So we're going to be doing a version of Disneyland in 1955 when it first opened. We'll be doing a version of Disneyland in the 1960s, a version of Disneyland in the 1970s, and so on. So I have to build all that stuff because I offered to do it. So I'm busy with that as well. And then Shiloh and I are working on, I don't want to be too specific because I don't want people to steal our idea before we've even gotten off the ground, but Shiloh and I are also working on a place in the popular game Roblox. We're working on a historic world that you can visit and walk around and get lost and admire historic architecture, admire historic modes of transit, including cable cars and ocean liners. And so we're doing this huge world that will represent all of the best of American architecture and engineering from the historic eras. And so, why American? Well, because we're American, and that's kind of what we know. But it will be really amazing. And even if you're not interested in history, I think if you see it, you'll kind of be like, hey, this is a great place for me and my friends to kind of hang out in virtual reality. Because you can put on a virtual headset as well, if you have it, and you can play the game and just hang out with your friends in this really cool world. So we're building that. It's going very slow. We want to do periodic updates of that so you guys can see what we're doing. But before we get to that stage, we want to build it up enough that there's actually something to look at so you get a good idea of what we're going for. But we're still in the very beginning stages of that. As well as, sorry, my nose is running. Let me get, so people have been asking about my model railroad in my office. For the longest time, my office has been used as a storage space because my sister had a garage that we were keeping a lot of our boxes in, and she moved, and so she got, she got rid of her garage, so we had to move all that stuff into my office. Recently, I completely cleaned out the office, completely removed all the boxes, so that way I can get to my train set and continue work on it. So that will happen. I've been waiting for the weather to cool down for that too, because that's another one of those cases where when I'm in the office, it can get really hot. If it's me in there with a bunch of lights and cameras going, and I'm trying to move around, climb under and over the train set to work things and clean stuff and paint stuff, it gets really hot in there. So I've been waiting for cooler weather. So literally, that's the only reason I haven't done anything in the last couple of weeks, even though I've announced it, is just because of the weather. I'm just waiting for it to cool down, and it's looking like it may not get cool enough for yet another week. But I'm hoping next week I can start like my first live stream of my railroad stuff, so you guys can see what I'm doing with my model railroad and all that. It's a really cool thing, and I want to get going on it. I've got all the supplies I need to keep building stuff, and so I'm just waiting for better weather, because just like right now, I'm like really hot, and with all the lights and stuff, and the windows closed so I don't have people outside who are making noise, getting on the live stream. So I'm just waiting for better weather on that. But yeah, um, let me get to some questions real quick. I think some people are talking about. Let's see. Five Kept Film says, I remember Alex said fans came to his house once. Not really sure how people think that is normal. Um, so let's talk about YouTube and people's behavior, and even just online, because that's a great way to segue. Because I did want to talk about this even when we started the live stream, because there's been a lot of stuff happening online lately, and you guys need to know about it, whether you're kids or you are parents. It's very important. But first of all, parasocial relationships. It can happen to anybody. A parasocial relationship is where someone watches somebody either on TikTok or Instagram or even YouTube, and you watch them long enough that you feel like you know that person, and you feel like you've been best friends with them your whole life. They may even say hello to you and answer your comments, but in reality, that influencer or whatever you want to call them probably doesn't know who the commenter is. They probably don't know who that person really is. And unfortunately, that's happened to me before, where there have been people who felt like they really, really knew me, and they send me emails and stuff as if they've known me their whole life, but I don't know who they are. And so they get real personal sometimes. They tell me things that maybe someone who's just meeting you would not normally tell you. It happens. And I don't want to judge those people because, again, it's one of those things where you watch the person online long enough that you feel like you know them. And so to the viewer, it's very real. It's a friendship. But to the person who's in front of the camera, it's not the same thing. They see the person in the comments once in a while, but outside of the camera, outside of social media, they don't really know who all these people are. And so it can be a very one-sided friendship, and so that's why they call it a parasocial relationship. And that happens. And I've had people who felt like they were such good friends with me that one day, and this was years ago, like before the pandemic, but years ago, I was at Disneyland and I was filming a vlog, and I was eating at a restaurant, and I guess I accidentally had shown the receipt on the camera, and so the people saw some of the personal information on the receipt of my food, and they just did a quick Google reverse search and all that kind of stuff and found out where I lived, and they came to my house and knocked on the door, and I'm like, oh, hello, who are you, and they were like, hi, we're your big fans and blah blah blah, and we saw your some of your information on your receipt, and we thought we'd look you up and come over and say hi. Thankfully, they were really nice people. They were not there to hurt me, but it was a little scary. It was a little bit creepy because I know that I'm in front of a camera, and it might seem like I'm probably the most open person there is. But I do like my privacy, and I do keep a lot of things about my life private because, well, for one thing, it doesn't. Some of the aspects of my life have nothing to do with history, and this channel is all about history, and I try not to muddy history up with my opinions or my life. I try to keep it to just the stuff that you guys want to see, and you don't want to see, every aspect of my personal life. Some of it's boring, and some of it is probably just something that I don't know. I guess it's just not. How do you say? It's not. It doesn't pertain to you. So so that's the kind of stuff that I like to have my privacy outside of the camera, and have my friends and family and have my own kind of life outside of YouTube. And so I do take steps to protect my privacy. I've definitely taken steps since that day when those people came to my apartment. After that, I was extra careful about who knows my information and stuff, and how they can find me. I'm very careful about that stuff now. I have no problem. If I'm out at Disneyland or I'm at the Queen Mary and people come and say hello, that's fine. I'm fine with it because you didn't know I was going to be there, and I didn't know you were going to be there, and it's just a meeting by happenstance. It's natural. It's great. It's great to meet people. It's just that, don't come to my house. So, that's the only thing. So, but yeah, and then there was another time where I guess, you see, I used to do meetups, right? So I used to schedule an annual, or actually twice annual meetup at Disneyland. And so people who were fans of my channel, they could come to the Grand Californian Hotel and meet me and my friends there, and we'd all hang out as a big group. It was usually during summer or Christmas, so because we did it twice a year. And we would take a huge group photo, and we'd all hang out at Disneyland. Some folks couldn't afford to go in the park, so what we would do is we'd hang out in downtown Disney, or amongst the public areas, and hang out there for a couple hours. And we'd tell people, okay, now we're gonna those of us who have a ticket, we're gonna transition into Disneyland, and so this is where we part ways. But otherwise, we always made it a point to try to hang out with the viewers who wanted to meet us, and we used to do that. But over the last 8 to 10 years or so, public behavior has started to shift. And now it's become to the point where if someone doesn't like you for any reason, they will do what they can to either try to make you uncomfortable or even to threaten you. And I was at Disneyland once, and I was walking down Main Street, and I was live streaming, and I guess this guy who really didn't like me for some reason, I still don't know why exactly, but he didn't like me for some reason, but he was watching my live stream, so he knew exactly where I was, and he came over and started just berating me and just like yelling at me and telling me I'm a shill or something like that, and all this kind of stuff, and it was just getting really crazy. And I just thought, I'm the kind of person who is just like, okay, I may not agree with your opinions, but I let you have your opinions, right? But this guy didn't have any kind of rhyme or reason. It's just that he just didn't like that I was a YouTuber and I was earning money online from visiting Disneyland. I mean, I guess I don't understand why that's a problem, and maybe that's why he disliked me so much. But it was kind of scary. And after that, I was like, okay, I can't do live streams anymore where I'm in a public place, because people will come out and find me, and the guy could have hurt me if he really wanted to. I mean, it seemed like he was getting to that point where he was going to hurt me. And I was just trying to diffuse the situation and calm him down, because that's what I do. I try to diffuse situations instead of add to them. But people's behavior has changed. It used to be that if someone didn't like you, they ignored you. But nowadays, it's more like if someone doesn't like you, they will move heaven and earth to come find you and berate you. It's just really weird. So it's not just his behavior, but I've noticed that over time amongst several individuals, some individuals who couldn't let it go, I think, and it's one thing to ignore those people, but sometimes ignoring them fuels it, and they keep coming back and they keep doing worse things. And and so I don't want to get specific, because I don't want to start stuff again, because maybe some of those folks are watching still. I forgive people very easily. I mean, stuff just rolls off my back, and so usually if someone gets mad at me and they yell at me for something, usually by the next day I've forgotten all about it. I don't carry it with me, but I do remember it, and so I don't want to like stir up any of that again if those people are still watching, because ultimately I don't hold any grudges against anybody. I mean, even that guy that berated me at Disneyland, I don't hold any grudges against him. I think that what he thought he was doing was right, but yeah. So anyway, that's kind of like what things have become now. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, why is my nose running so much? Oh my goodness. But yeah, one of the things I want to talk about was online behavior. So first and foremost, everybody, be sure some point in your day, every day, to put down your phones, turn off your TVs, unplug your radios, and maybe, listen to some music or play a record of some kind if you like, vinyl records, or go outside and take a walk, or make plans to hang out with friends or family. Do something where you're not in front of a screen, because I do. I take time at least once every day, even if it's for a short while, to try to just not look at electronics, not look at, stuff, and just enjoy time. Sometimes what I'll do is, if I can't, turn off electronics, then what I'll do is I'll just start playing music from my computer, and then, I'll do some cleaning or something, and something like that. But I always try to like get away from it, because there are people in this world, groups of people, huge, sections of society, who want to tell us that we hate each other and we should not associate with each other, and that we are so different from each other. But if all of the research on history I've done my whole life has taught me anything, it's that in the end, we are all more alike than we probably want to admit. We're all very much the same. We all have the same concerns. We all are concerned about our parents. We're concerned about our families. We're concerned about our children, our nieces, our nephews. We're concerned about, will we make this month's rent? Will we pay our electricity bills? Will we, go on that trip we want to go to? Will we have enough time to spend with the people we love? People deal with things like, my friend is moving away. Will I see them again? When will I see them again? Things like that. We all have the same worries, the same differences. I think each and every one of us can say that at some point in our lives, someone has made fun of us for something that makes us different. Even people who say, well, I got made fun of because I used to have huge glasses. Or someone said, oh, I had buck teeth. Or someone says, oh, someone made fun of me because I have dark skin. Or because, I have two parents that are of the same gender or something. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that everybody, and nobody is above one another in terms of what they've experienced in their life. Someone who makes fun of a little girl for wearing big glasses, that's a big no-no. That's not fair. It's not her fault, And so it's things like that where I don't want people to feel like someone else's problems is bigger or smaller than your problems or that person's problems. Everybody has problems, and it affects us all in different ways. And my nose is running. I'm not crying. I might cry, but no, my nose is running. But, it's caused by people from all walks of life who maybe aren't doing well, maybe not mentally or emotionally or even physically doing well, and they're angry at something or somebody, and they think it makes them feel better to put down other people or to just create chaos and wreak havoc and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really important, you guys, that you remember that what you see online is not the real world. I mean, even me, I try to be as authentic as I possibly can. I never lie to you guys. I don't promote products. I don't go on here going, try this tea. Like, I don't promote stuff because I try to be as authentic as I can. I think once in my whole YouTube career, I was promoting my friend. My friend has a YouTube channel. He does all kinds of cool stuff, builds signs, does cool things. And for a while, I was saying, check out my friend's channel. And he, and he was so thankful for it. He upgraded my camera for me. But that's the closest I ever got. And I'm being totally honest. That's the closest I ever got to promoting a product, right? But I try not to do stuff like that, where I'm like, oh, I get all my diet stuff from this subscription plan, and then you guys look at me and you're like, we know you're not on a diet, dude, don't lie to us. So that's why I don't promote products, because it violates my sense of integrity. And and I also try not to express too many of my own opinions, because frankly it's not my job to tell you what to think. But it has occurred to me lately that while it's not my job to tell you what to think, it is my job to encourage you to think. Not about anything in particular, but to, in this case, encourage you to realize that there is a world out there beyond the world that people online tell us exists. There's a world out there where there are very real people with very real problems just like yours, who are struggling just like you are, who are as passionate as you are about maybe even the opposite things that you are passionate about. And we don't have to agree with them. We don't have to bow down to them. But I do think it's important that we understand where they're coming from, why it's important to them. And that's what I try to do. People have opinions that differ from my own. And I try to ask that person about their life, about what their experiences are. Because then I can kind of see where they're coming from. I can kind of go, oh, okay, I see why that person feels this way. And I think just by understanding that person more, I see them as the human they are, rather than the username on the comment section, And so I try to do that, and I want to encourage people to do that as well. It's very difficult, I know, especially around these times where it seems like we're so divided, but we're really not. That's what I'm trying to say here, is we're not as divided as people want to make us think we are. And I can go out to the grocery store right now. I can say hello and in return be greeted by people whom might have very different lives than my own. And I may never know about those things that we might disagree on. I may never know those aspects of them. But that's not what matters at that point. If it's the cashier behind the register who's asking me how my day is going, that's what matters. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, used to say that one of the greatest gifts we can give people is to be present at the moment with them. One-on-one, you and me. If we can talk to people and be present and receive what it is that they are receive what it is that they are giving us or telling us, it is a great gift to give. And I live by that. I really do. I live by that. So I just wanted to share that message with you guys, because I know that there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. And that can be really scary. But the final message I want to deliver before I end this live stream is watch out for people online. There are some people online who try to talk to little kids, essentially. And I think you know where this is going, and I'm not going to get too far into it because this is probably a conversation that really adults should have with their kids. But be careful who you're talking to. It's always safe to say, don't talk to strangers. You know, my parents used to tell me that when I was a little kid. Don't talk to strangers. Be mindful of who is around you, how close they are to you. Because you never know. You could be walking down the street and not paying attention and, you know, something could happen. But the other thing, too, is when it comes to being online, there are people who go to online websites or chat rooms and things, and they hang out with kids all day long. And it's unfortunate because I'm starting to see that now, because I get people who tell me that, man, you know, this is what's happening and blah, 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 and, you know, like, can you believe that this happened to this person? And they're people that I've come to know, and I'm like, it's really crazy that that happens. I mean, there's a reason why I don't have any public chat servers and things like that. A lot of people have their own Discord servers for, you know, talking to other fans. And I try not to do that kind of stuff because, sadly, it encourages disreputable people to speak to people they probably shouldn't be speaking to. And let me address the kids who are watching right now. Kids, you have a right to be respected by adults you don't know. You have a right for adults to talk to you in appropriate ways. If an adult is talking to you in a way that you know is not appropriate, that could be a big red flag about who that person is. Could be. Maybe not necessarily, but could be. My point is that the way you talk to your peers of your own age is one thing entirely. But adults have a duty, a responsibility to speak to you in a professional and appropriate way. And if they violate that, it's probably a good idea not to talk to that adult. So that's just what I want to say. And this goes for random adults online who are talking with kids. Sometimes I hear stories of kids, they play video games, and you can get a headset and you can talk to other people who are playing that game. And of course, there's going to be a mixture of people from all ages playing that game. And you might have some adult who's screaming profanities, and you've got little kids who are like 6 and 7 and 8 years old who are listening to that. So parents, please be aware of what it is your kids are doing online, who they're talking to, because it may not be as simple and innocent as it seems. So just be aware, you know. It can be a scary world out there. But to end on a high note, to kind of get away from all that dark stuff, because I just wanted to share all that with you, because I think it's really important, and not a lot of people talk about that stuff. But just on a high note, so there's a lot of stuff coming to the channel, and we're going to continue bringing content that is based on history and based on all these really cool technologies, and even Disneyland and Walt Disney. I'm actually planning to do a video about Walt Disney. I'm still on the fence. I've been on the fence about this video ever since I started my channel. I've wanted to make this video. So it's been 9 years. Wow. But I always worry about what people will think of this video. So I haven't done it. But this year I'm like, I really want to do it. I really want to do it because it's a subject I'm very passionate about, and I think that people need to hear it. Even if you're not a Disney fan, you need to hear it. But yeah, so I don't know why my nose is running. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening. Lots of projects in the works. And hopefully next week I can start doing my first live streams with my model railroad, so you guys can see that. And then what was the other thing I was talking about? Oh, we got a podcast coming. I'll probably post that on Tuesday, since it's too late now to do it. Yeah, so lots of cool stuff coming. And then a video either about Disneyland or Walt Disney, if I drum up the courage to do the Walt Disney video. So, yeah, and then after that there'll be videos about the origins of cities like San Francisco. And then there will be videos about... I got a video about Queen Mary that I'm starting to kind of swirl all these ideas together. And so I'll be doing that. And in case you're wondering, because I haven't eaten anything off this plate, I will. When I'm done here, I'm going to scarf it all down before it gets too stale, because I don't like wasting food. But I will. I'll eat all that. I'll get myself a glass of water because my mouth is dry. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been really great to have you all back. I haven't done one of these live streams in a really long time, so I've been looking forward to it. And hopefully I'll do another live stream soon. Maybe we'll do like the Titanic. We'll walk around the Titanic virtually, or you know, I think sometime soon, maybe by the end of the month, we'll do another Disneyland Railroad Simulator live stream, so we could talk about the stuff that are coming to the Disneyland Railroad Simulator that I'm working on. So as you can tell, I'm very busy, but the good news is I am back to saving up for that UK trip. It's slow going for now, but I think it's going to ramp up, and hopefully by sometime in the first half of next year, I will have enough money that I can start booking those things. So I'm really hoping for that. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you all next time, everyone. Bye-bye.